Coming up in today's newscast, United States Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, resigns. A Palestinian-American student gets detained at Ben-Gurion Airport for a week. And 3 Israeli companies just broke out into Time magazine's 50 Genius Companies list.
U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, announced her resignation yesterday, stating she'll be leaving by the end of the year. At the Oval Office on Tuesday, Trump praised Haley for her accomplishments, saying he would welcome her back to the White House at any time in the future.
You know, the United States has been fortunate to have a few real giants sitting in that chair. As Professor Dershowitz said, Patrick Moynihan. I think of Jean Kirkpatrick as another example. She's up there, I think, with the greatest. And what gives me some comfort, although I'm so sad to see her go, what gives me some comfort is she has now set the stage. She has set the bar for her successor. And I think that whoever the president picks to succeed her will come in knowing that this is the legacy that they need to uphold. So I'm anticipating that same sort of unrestrained support for Israel and commitment to the truth that we saw with Ambassador Haley, but she will most certainly be missed.
Haley has been a strong advocate of the Jewish state, making headlines for her unwavering support of Israel and standing up for the ideals of freedom and human rights. She often stood up against the UN and countries attacking Israel, stating, quote, "The days of Israel bashing are over," and that, quote, "Nowhere has the UN's failure been more consistent and more outrageous than in its bias against our close ally, Israel." This was also consistent with her actions before taking the post. While serving as governor of South Carolina, Haley signed into law a bill to stop the BDS movement, which was the first of its kind on a statewide level. During her time in the Trump administration, she also pulled the U.S. out of the UN Human Rights Council, cut U.S. funding for UNRWA, and lobbied to the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, to pull the report which accused Israel of apartheid. Israeli and Jewish leaders around the world praised the outgoing ambassador, with Prime Minister Netanyahu stating, quote, "I would like to thank Ambassador Nikki Haley, who led the uncompromising struggle against hypocrisy at the UN and on behalf of the truth and justice of our country." President Reuven Rivlin said that Haley, quote, "tore away the cynical smokescreen that was masking what the UN and international organizations were really doing." And finally, among many other supporters, AIPAC wrote on Twitter, quote, "Thank you for consistently standing up for America's interests and our democratic ally, Israel." There are some unanswered questions regarding the timing of Haley's resignation. Many speculate that by announcing her departure just before midterms, she will avoid being perceived as disloyal to Trump during what could be a departure of several senior officials. Others have speculated that Haley's resigning in order to run for president in 2020. However, she quickly put that to rest, saying that she will be campaigning for Trump's re-election. As for a replacement, several politicians are reportedly on Trump's shortlist for the position, including former White House advisor Dina Powell and U.S. Ambassador to Germany Richard Grenell. Some have wondered if the first daughter, Ivanka Trump, might be a frontrunner for the post. However, Ivanka shot down that rumor in a tweet, stating, quote, "I know that the president will nominate a formidable replacement for Ambassador Haley. That replacement will not be me."
It's now the 4th day since the manhunt for the Barkhan terrorist was initiated. And in a meeting with the elite Duvdevan unit, Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman asserted that the terrorist, Ashraf Walid Naalawa, will soon be captured.
Lieberman met with the Duvdevan unit in cooperation with the IDF and Shin Bet forces to conduct a search to apprehend 23-year-old Naalawa, who shot Kim Levin-Grand Yehezkel and Ziv Hagbi in the Barkhan terror attack on Sunday. But despite the amount of time that's passed, Lieberman and Prime Minister Netanyahu expressed optimism about capturing the terrorist. Netanyahu said that, quote, "From the report I've received this morning, I expect it won't take long before this despicable perpetrator is apprehended. I have faith in our security forces." IDF and Shin Bet forces are conducting extensive searches in the terrorist village as well and have arrested suspects that assisted him in the attack. Palestinian security officials said they're assisting as well, as the terrorist is more likely to surrender to them. But they reiterated that there is full coordination between all security forces on this manhunt. Meanwhile, Danny Danon, head of the Israeli mission to the UN, presented photos of the two victims at the UN after the world body remained silent for 2 days without condemning the killings.
A new unit of Hamas, trained and designed to harass Israel during the night, has now accelerated its efforts. They call themselves the Unit of the Night Confusion, and their purpose is to advance the March of Return. Their strategy has turned from an open jihad with missiles, mines, and tunnels to popular activities aimed at gradually destroying Israel. Returning now to the studio to discuss this is Dr. Mordechai Dubb, expert on the Middle East from the Begin Sadat Center at Bar-Ilan University. Thanks so much for being with us.
Pleasure, yeah.
So can you discuss Hamas's new strategy and why this poses such a serious threat to Israel?
Well, they found out that missiles, tunnels, explosives look bad in the world media and actually justifies Israel retaliation. While kids who send kites or people at night who try to cut the fence are much more visible, and people in the West sympathize with this. And this is actually what they try to do, to bash Israel, to make Israel look bad by peaceful activity like this, because this is a real arena which Israel will lose. The world media and the public opinion, all these things, where they can actually defeat Israel, unlike terrorism as they prepare. Of course, they didn't give up on the terrorism, but for the time, since they cannot now fight against Israel because Israel can retaliate, they do these things. And this is a new strategy to defeat Israel in the public arena.
How is that possible? Because bomb-filled kites are not innocuous.
Well, it looks better because they call it balloons, kites, what do you want? So this is how they pose it in the Arab media, that Israel is afraid of balloons, of kites. And this is the image which this activity makes, not like people are blown up in buses as they did before. So this is what I mean by a new strategy to use the world media, the public opinion, as a weapon, and these kids are served as bullets in order to shoot Israel with his people.
So what is Israel's new strategy?
Well, now I think that there is a new approach. Israel, little by little, tries to isolate Gaza from the West Bank because part of these people's aggravation is against the PA, which blocks the money, blocks everything. And Abu Mazen actually wants Israel to do the dirty job for him. So now what Israel does is to allow oil to go to Gaza in order to have more electricity directly, not through the PA. Money comes to Israel from Qatar directly. And this also enables Qatar to spread its hegemony over Gaza regardless of what happens in Ramallah. Actually, this is the new strategy to separate Gaza from the PA. Actually, this to fragment the PA because of the failure of both sides of the Palestinians, the so-called West Bank or Ramallah and Gaza, to work together. Since already for 11 years, they cannot cooperate on anything. Okay, this is the situation, let's go with it. And Israel actually goes with it by giving the oil to Gaza directly, not through the money system of the PA. And this, I think, is a new strategy which Israel now starts to operate without talking about this, without announcement. And this, I think, can work.
That's all the time we have today. Thank you for your analysis.
Thank you so much, Yael.
Lara Alqasim, the U.S. student who's been denied entry into Israel as a result of her support of the BDS movement, has decided to stay and personally fight the ban in court. Immigration authorities spokeswoman Sabine Haddad emphasized that Alqasim is not under arrest, but has just been refused entry. She's being held in the airport holding facility now, awaiting the start of her case. She emphasized that the judge for the case, Kobi Valdi, ruled that Alqasim would not be required to stay there and could return home at any time. He made it clear that they could have the Tel Aviv hearing in her absence.
Security Minister Gilad Erdan said he would allow Alqasim entry if she publicly denounces BDS, but she hasn't done so and is instead appealing to the courts. Professors have issued at least 3 petitions to the Israeli government, reading in part that, quote, denying entry to foreign students based on political beliefs or ethnic heritage is an attack on academic freedom. So as professors who are committed to academic freedom and as humans who reject all forms of racial profiling, we are calling on the Israeli authorities to permit Lara Alqasim to enter Israel and pursue her studies, unquote. Ironically, the statement is in itself hypocritical to the BDS movement's stated intent. Just last month, a University of Michigan professor refused to write a letter of recommendation for a student to join a study abroad program in Israel. But at any rate, the Israeli government reserved the right over a year ago to detain and deport anyone it finds to be hostile to the state. And proponents for BDS certainly fall under that category.
With both the Jewish conversion laws and Haredi military conscription laws on the back burner, many in the government are watching to see if the coalition will call for early elections.
Earlier this week, Netanyahu met with his 3 coalition party heads, Finance Minister Moshe Kahlon of the Kulanu Party, Shah's chairman and acting Interior Minister Aryeh Deri, and Education Minister from the Habayit HaYehudi Party, Naftali Bennett, to discuss the ongoing negotiations on the conversion and conscription issues. Reports show that all 3 believe that Netanyahu would be better off holding elections now, before the courts impose a December deadline on these conflicts. The Knesset returns from summer recess next week, and elections are set to be held by November of 2019. However, the government could initiate an early election with a vote. Adding to the suspicion that early elections will be held is the fact that Netanyahu's ruling Likud party just gained power in the Knesset, according to a recent poll. The numbers compiled by Midgam indicate that if elections were held today, the Likud would go from 30 to 32 seats in the Knesset, and Yair Lapid's Yesh Atid party would also increase substantially from 11 to 18, while the Zionist Union would drop from 24 to just 12. Other parties were only marginally changed by a few seats at most. All this aside, if the Likud does hold and win early elections, the coalition could still fall apart. Finance Minister Moshe Kahlon has reiterated that he would not, under any circumstances, support the coalition with Netanyahu at the helm if the prime minister were to be indicted. He said simply that, quote, a prime minister under indictment and after a hearing cannot function. He warned that if Netanyahu did not step down under such circumstances, everyone else will.
Now we have some amazing news. After only 3 days of competition, Israel has already achieved 2 medals at the Youth Olympic Games in Buenos Aires. 15-year-old Israeli swimmer Anastasia Gorbenko has won the gold medal in the women's 200-meter individual swim competition on Sunday. And here with us in the studio is ILTV's Joy Gavijon to tell us more about it. Joy, this is great news for Israel.
Hi, Alex. So you're right. Actually, Israel kicked off the games in the best way. On the first day of the competition, Gorbenko won the gold medal in swimming, setting an Israeli record in this category for 2 minutes and 12 seconds. And this is a major achievement because she competed in the 18 and older category, winning against other swimmers that are up to 3 years older than her.
Wow, this sounds very promising for Israeli athletes.
Yes.
I actually saw the awards ceremony, and Gorbenko stood proudly at Israel's national anthem as Hatikva was played on the loudspeaker.
Yes.
Do you think we'll get to see this happen again?
Hopefully. Actually, Israel definitely has the chance to bag more medals. And actually, another athlete already did. Now, on the second day of the competition, Israeli swimmer Denis Loktev won the second award for Israel. He competed in the men's 200-meter freestyle category, achieving a bronze medal. And after the ceremony, he expressed his pride of being Israeli, saying, "We are a very small country and we have some very good youngsters coming through." And he's right, because there are actually a total of 19 Israeli athletes competing in the games. And Israel is participating in a variety of competitions, including gymnastics, acrobatics, judo, taekwondo, swimming, and even sailing.
Wow, so we have a lot of competitions to watch.
We do, yes.
Joy, I understand that the Games in Argentina will wrap up in Buenos Aires on October 18th. That's more than a week from now.
Yes.
Does the Israeli delegation have any plans other than the competition itself?
Well, yes. During this trip to Argentina, the athletes will be meeting with members of the local Argentinian Jewish community, and will be also visiting the sites of terror attacks against Jews in Buenos Aires. Now, the main event for them, outside the games, of course, will be joining the Israeli ambassador to Argentina, Ilan Stulman, in a visit to the Israeli embassy in Buenos Aires. That's another site where a terrorist attack in 1992 killed 29 people. So we could say that they're up for a cultural experience also.
In the meantime, until the end of their trip, we offer our congratulations to Anastasia Gorbenko and Denis Laktev, and wishing good luck to all the other Israeli athletes in the upcoming games. Thanks so much for your update, Joy.
Thank you.
In other good news, the Israeli cabinet has finally approved Prime Minister Netanyahu's September announcement to bring Ethiopian Jews from the Falash Mura community to Israel. There are still over 8,000 Falash Mura Ethiopian Jews living in Ethiopia. However, many of their family members have already come to Israel, with the total Ethiopian population in the Jewish state at over 130,000. But now, according to a statement from the Prime Minister's office, Prime Minister Netanyahu and Finance Minister Kahlon have finalized the plan to reconnect these families by bringing 1,000 members of the Falash Mura community who already have children in the country.
Under the guidelines of the plan, those approved to immigrate to Israel will be able to do so with their spouses and unmarried children, even if the spouses and children aren't technically Jewish. The Aliyah and Integration Ministry will extend the right of return to the families regardless, and the conversion division within the rabbinate will provide their services where necessary. The decision is a long time coming, as the first waves of immigrants from Ethiopia were as early as 1984's Operation Moses. Then in 2015, the government approved Decision 716, agreeing to bring the last of the Falash Mura to Israel, followed by Decision 1911 in 2016, which approved another 1,300 family members to come to Israel immediately, similar to the deal made this week. But with the Ethiopian community praising this outcome, some are fiercely arguing against it. Knesset member Bezalel Smotrich sent a scathing letter to the Prime Minister demanding that the decision be reversed. He claims in the letter that this immigration would harm the status quo by allowing an excessive expansion to the right of return. Israel's law of return currently only applies to Jews in the diaspora or people who can prove Jewish lineage. But Smotrich says that, quote, this is too broad and problematic enough, adding that the Falash Mura relatives, quote, are not Jewish, aren't married to Jews, and aren't the sons or grandchildren of Jews. So by the same token, it's possible to make a government decision to bring everyone else on the globe. The Falash Mura do fall into a special category, however. It's true that normally under the right of return they would not be included as their ancestors converted to Christianity. However, they did so under much distress. That's why the Interior Ministry will instead be following their own considerations, as well as family reunification principles. Then, once here, most Falash Mura convert through the proper channels.
What better way to see and show support for one another than by having an Israeli model open a fashion show for an Israeli designer in New York City? The young Israeli model, Netta Alqasim, just walked her very first runway while wearing none other than Berta bridle. ILTV's Emanuel Kadosh is here with us with all the details. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Yael. Well, other than the fact that, I absolutely adore that the Israeli designer Berta and Netta Alqasim, the 24-year-old bikini model and businesswoman, opened her show. Other than that fact that they're both Israeli, I think it's just so unique that, Netta has never been to New York. This is her first time in New York and her first time on a runway, which I think is really unique and so special. She has her own bathing suit line and her own bathing suit brand called Bananha, which she's kind of, gotten into this niche of only modeling either, underwear or having bathing suits. So this is really, really new that she's doing bridal.
Wow. So what makes it so special other than the fact that it was her first runway?
Right. So yes, other than the fact that it was her first runway, Netta, I don't know if you know this so much about fashion, but to be a runway model, you have to be minimum 5'9", like a bare minimum of 5'9". Most of the models, she's 5'5".
Whoa.
So you can only imagine, the height difference and the intimidation factor, the fact that she's never walked a runway before. I really, really, really respect Berta for actually hiring her and putting her out there. Of course, it was, a business aspect to it because Netta does have over 1 million followers on Instagram. She's really famous here in Israel, but Berta herself is also a really, really huge bridal designer. So I think that the fact that she's 5'5" and not, size 0 and not your typical runway model, and she opened the show was a huge say to Berta and also to Netta as a model.
Wow. So first, that is a huge height difference. Is she
yes.
wearing heels that are
She
2
wore
feet
something,
tall?
from what I understood, something between 4.5 to 5 inch heels, stiletto heels. And I don't know if you know what that's like, but all of that together is just probably the most nerve-wracking experience she could have ever had, but I think she absolutely killed it.
That's amazing. So I've also heard she's a very successful Israeli designer in the international world.
Yeah, Berta is actually really, really, really big. She started out here, just her and 2 seamstresses in Ashdod, in a city in close to Tel Aviv, a little outside of Tel Aviv. Just them 3, and within, I want to say, a year or 2, they blew up. I interviewed her last year and she had over 1 million followers. Now she has over 2 million followers. And this is actually Berta's 7th show in New York Bridal Fashion Week. So this is just, the start. I think the collaboration with Netta was just so successful, and hopefully we can see, Netta being exposed a little bit more in the States and maybe in Europe. And the collaboration between Berta and Netta was just priceless.
That's incredible.
Yes.
And I heard she's also going to be a bride soon as well.
Yes, actually, she got proposed to just a few months ago in the Maldives, and it was just the craziest thing here in Israel because everyone was dying to hear when she was going to get engaged. Her and her 5-year now fiance are planning on getting married in this summer, sometime this 2019 summer. And so I think this was kind of more of like a fitting / fashion show for Netta. So it was exciting.
Wow. Well, it looks like we're going to see more of Netta than we already do.
We already do. Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Well, thanks, Emanuel.
Thank you.
Time magazine has just completed its first annual list of genius companies, which it considers to be inventing the future. And 3 Israeli companies have made the list. The candidates were evaluated based on originality, influence, success, and ambition.
The first Israeli company on the list, ADOC, is an artificial intelligence-powered software that analyzes medical images of organs to identify the presence of diseases. Until now, they've collected 260,000 images, which have saved 50,000 hours of human work. And that makes sense. The 3 co-founders of ADOC are graduates of one of the most elite units in the army, Talpiot, which is famous for recruiting the smartest minds in Israel. Another Israeli company on the list is Lishtot, which means to drink in Hebrew. They developed a product which rapidly detects contaminants in drinking water, and they're currently developing other products as well, such as T-Straw, which is a pen-shaped device that will give users an accurate indication of what type of contaminants are in the water sample, as well as their concentration levels. Another device they're developing is the Test Pipe, which checks the quality of tap water in residential homes and is set to fit easily under any sink. Finally, the 3rd Israeli company on Time's Genius Companies list is WeWork, the workspace empire. The WeWork co-founder, Adam Neumann, was also ranked in Time's 100 most influential people this year. Since founding the company in 2010, the company has grown to 373 locations in 69 cities, including 10 locations in Israel. And the company is expanding as well, developing projects such as We Live, an urban co-living community with furnished apartments and communal spaces. We Live is currently in New York and Virginia, but it's said to be coming soon to Tel Aviv. Other projects by WeWork include Rise by We, a wellness club, and We Grow, a private coding school. Other companies on Time magazine's list include industry giants and leaders such as Apple, Amazon, Airbnb, Disney, and Nike.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day, with 3 Israeli companies making the Times 50 Genius Companies list, our word of the day is chadshanut, meaning innovation. Innovation, or chadshanut, is expanding or improving upon an idea to make something new. Israel's called the startup nation for a reason, with companies creating many types of innovative or chadshani technology all the time. And that's a very good thing, because without chadshanut, you get stagnation. Now, an innovative or chadshani person is typically creative, has a vision, and is intelligent. So our advice for you today is to never settle for less than constant chadshanut, because who knows, maybe you might be the next Steve Jobs. So let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be mostly clear with a low of 69 or 21 degrees Celsius. Then tomorrow you can expect a slight decrease in temperatures to a high of 81 or 27 degrees Celsius. That's all for our news today. Today's exchange rate is 3.62 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Yael Shear, and thanks for watching.